So let's just start off by introducing you guys. Want to make sure that we kind of have people in general that understand our product, also know the people that are behind it and the people that are actually building it. So that when we have, as I've written a lot in my blogs, and I talked to you, Max, about kind of in our podcast, we actually put a face to all this kind of grandiose talk about changing the future and what we'll do in the world of tomorrow and all this like Web 3.0 stuff. I really enjoy and appreciate when people kind of like take the time to get like acquainted with the background and the people who are actually building the devices that we love to talk so highly about. So yeah, introduce yourselves. Let's start right to left. I guess my right, so your guys is left to right.
That's me.
Okay, all right. There you go.
My name is. I've got to figure that out.
Yep.
My name is Austin. I am a recent hire to the Matryx team as a full stack engineer. Currently, I've done mostly working on the front end, building out the web UI aspect to the Matryx platform, and eventually we'll be taking over some of the Node API stuff and getting into the Ethereum smart contracts.
Awesome.
Cool. Hey, I'm Sam. I work here on a lot of things, but mostly coordinating all the moving parts of Matryx.
I'm Max.
Louder, Max.
So I'm Max. I work on the Matryx Platform smart contract system itself. The platform engineer, I guess, is an apt title.
From what I understand, Max, you're like the architect that makes sure that all these things that are grandiose ideas actually are capable of being achieved. So this is the main MTX, what I would say the high level executives of the platform build, and they're very modest, as you can tell, considering that introduction took like a minute for all three of them. But yeah, let's kind of like discuss your role and like how you came to be involved with Matryx, but the Nanome company in general.
Me again? Yeah, so I've been web development for several years now, and also involved in the JavaScript community here in San Diego. And I had met Sam at one of the events, and we hit it off. And he said, "Hey, I've got this awesome company that you should come work for, and this is what we do, and this is our vision, and this is our goal." And it would sound like a good match, so I came in, and here we are. And it's been crazy. A lot of working, like iterating super fast, and I think it's really great with both where the platform is today, what we're working on to reach tomorrow, and the idea of how quickly we're moving, and just imagining how far down, like, you multiply that by months and years, and just imagining where that's going to get us.
Yeah. I want to make sure that there is sound, because I'm getting some complaints that we might not have sound, and that would be upsetting, but I believe we should. This is the absolute stress of my job, is making sure that everything is actually working and that we don't look like a bunch of buffoons just quietly talking to each other.
Hey, Wes. Do you want to be one of our test users and click on this live stream?
Absolute stress of my job. Hey, it's working. Everything is.
I'm actually looking at it right here.
Okay. So audio's good?
Yeah, it's a little bit laggy, but it's okay.
All
right, we're okay, good.
Should we do that all over again? Or?
No, you guys it was all working. I think that person was just wrong. Sorry out there, person who was wrong.
Yeah, we still love you.
So what is let's move into a little bit more background into the philosophy that drives kind of people like us to work together, because we're all pretty eclectic people, I think is an understatement, but a true enough statement. So what does Matryx mean to you? And the philosophy behind the Nanome team in general is kind of a pretty concise structure, saying we want to speed up the rate of innovation for STEM. which has been proven in the software that we built for like VR and 2D molecular manipulation and the graphing calculator like CalcFlow. All of that stuff kind of speeds up the process of doing these hard sciences. But the actual blockchain aspect of itself is a little bit more intense of an animal. It's a pretty grand idea, but at the same time, a very achievable idea. So, like, what kind of does that idea mean to you guys individually?
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah. So Matrix to me means like solving big problems together. Means like curing cancers, creating like resource redistribution plans to solve world hunger and resource inequality, creating ultra efficient energy storage and production technologies. Really, just like technologies to save the world. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll touch on that a little bit. I think what we see is from a science perspective, just a STEM perspective. A lot of people, whether it's amateur scientists or enterprise, pharma companies, if you're going towards building a drug, they tend to like hodl their data and they don't really share it with anyone. So as you kind of increment and iterate up to like what you end up having as a drug released in the wild, all those contributions are kind of like siloed off. So what we want to do is like we want to accelerate that pace. So like how do we incentivize people and amateur scientists or professionals to share that data and kind of like hey, there's these different steps and how do you like have the different contributions for different places, all while maintaining like data integrity and IP. So that's like kind of our like very focused STEM goal. But that can be extended past that in a variety of ways because you can look at it as like that really is just steps of value added. We talk about 3 different layers of blockchain all the time. One of them being like the financial layer, like Bitcoin, where you have a lot of transactions, financial transactions. And the next layer is governance. So Ethereum is a great option for that, for smart contracts, like the DAO, the Decentralized Autonomous Organization. Just like that governance factor. And then the next one we see is like tracking production, like economic production. So, what is the different steps of value add throughout that process? And that's what we really aim to do with Matryx, is we aim to like be able to track those contributions towards like some outcome and then be able to like, allocate the IP accordingly.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be the first to say that the standardized academic way of academic institution way of like of researching and at the same time like enterprises, the way they work with academic institutions and all like the NDRs and all of that, I think is a symptom of like greed that's kind of entered the world of innovation, but like science, hard sciences, and it's good old fashioned New York City. Did you guys hear all that? Oh, damn. Somebody who's blasted some incredibly loud Latin music outside. But yeah, so I think greed kind of has made its way into a lot of innovation spaces. And one of the things I really enjoyed in our recent Asia trip was actually kind of the different structure they had to research, because there wasn't as much of this internalized need to be spotlighted as like I'm the one scientist that came up with this one thing. A lot of that comes from the fact that they're already a collectivist culture, but you could tell that there was a different structure to the way that science was done and products were brought to market. So I think that Matrix actually finds a really good in between like the capitalist money-making machine that infuses research and kind of the collectivist attitude that says, well, in the end, this will benefit all of us, so let's try and get that out there as soon as possible. Anyways, moving on to Austin.
What's that?
Moving on to, did you already say your piece?
About like what does the Ethereum technology offer us?
Yeah.
Or
what does
it mean to me?
Yeah. What does the Matryx platform really mean to you personally as like this decentralized collaboration platform?
Well, to me, on a personal level, my goal. I love working with technology, and that's just a lot of fun. But my like personal manifesto is to try and use the technology that I build to make the world a better place, whether that's directly or indirectly. So when I had the opportunity to come onto the Matryx team and work on something that is going to promote collaboration in scientists and researchers to reach their goals quicker and in a more collaborative way, that, and also using really awesome new modern technologies like that just fit perfectly with my own personal goal. I think using Ethereum or smart contracts enables us to uh, create something really unique and interesting. It's relatively new in the technology space right now. Some of the applications aren't even explored yet, but the potential it's very exciting. The potential that it brings with decentralized applications and more stable and reliable applications, as well as users being able to interact with the application in a way that they don't share any more data than they necessarily want to, right? They can interact on a very anonymous level, and we only request the information that we need for certain transactions to take place.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I guess as we're gonna move on, so we can actually get to the actual tutorial and overview soon. But one of the more questions I would have for you specifically, Austin, would be like, what is, as someone who kind of came in as the Matryx platform was already being built, what was one of the most initial interesting things that you found in the platform building on this that's different than anything else you've ever really built?
It was surprising to me that someone hasn't already tried to solve this issue. In that it's been such a big challenge for a long time now. The challenge of researchers and scientists kind of siloed off and not incentivized to work together.
Yeah.
While in this case, we're trying to get them to work together while also protecting their intellectual property, right? Because that's really kind of the challenge, or something that would incentivize not to work together. So that was one of the interesting things coming onto the team. I think in terms of the technology, I had never worked with Web3 smart contracts before, and so that presents very interesting challenges with not having, a centralized structure or a server where you can just say, oh, we'll just get query the database and get the information you need, and then present it back. Well, there is no database,
Yeah.
right? That's been really interesting challenges, but also very fun area to kind of
Push your skills. Yeah.
kind of get creative thinking.
Yeah. The as far as the concept of the idea goes, so from a decentralized perspective, the only thing that exists that's even remotely close to this philosophically is a pretty janky website called CrowdMed, I believe. You guys can check my source on that. I think it's called CrowdMed. But what people do is it's purely for the medical diagnostic space. So what they do is say like, hey, doctors have told me that it's just migraines, and I've had migraines for years, and that it's just always going to be migraines. I don't really believe them. Will anyone out there give me like a second opinion or help me crowdsource what is actually wrong with me? And they put all their doctors' diagnoses, and they put all of their background information, their family, whatever, onto this website. And then a bunch of part-time medical scientists or people who are still in school for their PhD basically get in there and just they love solving problems for the most part, so they just solve the problems. There's not really a monetary incentive. What the incentive there being is that they're right. Doctors a lot of times are people who really like to be right, and so the website just keeps track of like, all right, well, this person was right this many times, blah, 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 your score and your rating goes up. And the person who decides if they're right is actually no like hard factual evidence. It's really just, hey, did you bring this diagnosis up with your medical care provider, and did they agree, or did you feel like it was fulfilled? So then they go onto the website and they click, yeah, that was fulfilled. So that's the only version of like a decentralized scientific information sharing platform I've found that's even remotely close to what we're doing. But we're doing it for all of the industries, all of the sciences, as many as we can like get our code and our API into, and I think that's much more complete and robust project and goal. So yeah, I like that a lot. That discussion. The next question is going to be for Max, because Max, you're an architect. You're the guy in the background. So on the back end, when you're dealing with kind of creating this platform, what is some of the more challenging or at least interesting aspects of the Matryx project compared to other systems you've built?
Sure. So I think one of the most interesting ideas that I've come across recently with the platform is this idea of creating atomic algorithms, algorithms that normally would make use of iteration, whether that's just like for loop, while loop, recursion, and making them happen like instantaneously, essentially, like making them happen in one pass through the code. And if that's not possible, figuring out a way to use users' natural incentives to iterate, to perform the iterations of those algorithms for me. I think that's been a major shift in mindset that I've had to undertake.
Yeah.
Because a lot of traditional algorithms use for loops, use while loops, will loop over certain data structures to piece together the information they need. And so sort of turning those algorithms on their head and saying like, how can I make it happen in one step? That's been really cool.
Yeah.
And fun to think about. And then sort of on the more like frustrating but also interesting side, I was debugging maybe like a month ago, 3 weeks ago, and I had to take out certain functionality from a smart contract and put it in a different smart contract just to make everything fit.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to do delegate calls. And for anyone familiar with the delegate call in Solidity from the EVM opcodes, it retains the storage of the calling contract. It's within the scope of the calling contract. So I was trying to figure out why, when I was flagging a reference or flagging a submission as missing a reference, it was actually modifying the reference list itself was growing on the smart contract, and that was a really weird bug. And then I figured out that it had to do with the memory being different between the calling contract and the contract executing the code, the contract with the logic or the trust manipulation of the submission, and that they were different. And so therefore the contract containing the code actually was modifying the wrong memory address in the calling contract because they had a different memory layout, which was really interesting. It's one of those like, I feel like Solidity is one of those like it's a language that's still in its infancy.
Yeah.
To the point where you can really see sort of where the Solidity translates to machine code translates to memory being affected, and being able to go from like very top to the very bottom like that is just like, it's really nice as a programmer to be able to see the full scope of everything that's happening like that. And sort of a rare opportunity that, I don't know, I feel like programmers with who work in like high level languages like C# normally don't get to see. So that was also really cool in a different way.
Yeah. In a very technical way. Yeah, I've worked with a couple programmers who, even last summer, I think beginning in June, they were working in Solidity, and a huge aspect of working with it was understanding that it's super, super new, and there was a few issues. They actually had called a few of the higher ups, and they were like, "So do you guys understand that this is a problem?" And they were like, "Yeah, we figured it out like last week." So it's really funny to see the community of people that are, as Solidity becomes a more taught, more utilized language among programmers, like it's in itself being crowdsourced be better. So that's the whole point of open source. Okay, well let's do the dance. Let's move into the platform. Austin, I'm now making your screen bigger, so let's see it.
Awesome. So are we good to go?
Yes.
Great. So yeah, just kind of arriving to the platform, the UI aspect of the platform, you kind of land on a page that says, by accepting or by using the platform, you're accepting the terms of service, and all that good stuff. We have a mention that it's currently in alpha, and to let users know that to confirm that any sort of matrix exchanges that happen are on a private chain, and therefore it's kind of just monopoly money. It's not exchanging actual matrix tokens at the moment. So you can say I understand and continue, and you are greeted with the promotional video that we had for the token sale. And yeah, so from here you can access on the left-hand side a faucet to receive Matrix or Ether. You can access our blog. You can see this landing page on the About page. There's our social media links, and then you can see the tournaments listing page. And here we have a few tournaments, some from the
first alpha, one from us, and then one from the one of our close startups around the block.
Yeah, so it's got some features that you would expect, and as this list grows, being able to filter them by category or search string is going to be helpful. Then going into an actual tournament, you can see what the reward is, some information about it, the address of the user that created the tournament. As you want to explore the platform more, you need to, in order to interact with some of these smart contracts, you need what's called Web3, which is not available by default on your browser, but certain browsers support an extension called MetaMask, which will inject the Web3 interface so you can interact with smart contracts. So when you go to try and interact with the tournament, for example, to unlock it, you're greeted, if you do not have MetaMask installed, you're greeted with this image and a link that sends you to directions on how you would install that. I have that installed, and I can just enable it here. And if I refresh the page on that tournament, so with this user account that I have set up, you can see that now MetaMask is installed on the browser, but it's locked. And so to unlock that, I think, yeah. So when I don't know if you're able to see the MetaMask. Can you see the MetaMask pop-up, bro?
Yes. What do you mean the pop-up? Sorry, I was on mute. What do you mean by the pop-up? I can see the MetaMask guy on the browser. Yes.
Okay, so on the browser, where the mouse is, if I click that extension, you won't be able to see it because the browser is not sharing that screen. But that presents you with an interface of being able to see what your wallet address is, how much Ethereum you have, or Matrix, or whatever. You can send or receive transactions to people using Ethereum or it's like cryptocurrencies, and you can change certain networks that you're on, as well as changing user accounts. So once you've installed the MetaMask browser extension, you have to, it'll provide you an address, and that's what you would use to interact with the platform. And as long as that address is unlocked, then you can interact with the UI and do things like unlock the tournament. You can enter tournaments and things like that. So in my case, I'm currently logged into an account that does not have any funds and has not previously become a peer or entered a tournament. So I have this checkbox of things that I need to do in order to enter this tournament. If I switch accounts with MetaMask to a different account that already has some funds and has interacted with the platform previously, you can see that it's already entered this tournament and gone through the steps. And so now I have a different UI where I can create a submission, and I have a form that I could fill out and create a submission for this tournament if I wanted to enter the tournament.
Word. And all that account creation and stuff is seamless through, so you can like sign in basically utilizing your MetaMask. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of one of the interesting features that Web3 presents, is that because we have because it's a decentralized application and platform, your wallet is your account. You don't actually have to create an account with us. You don't have to provide us any more information. Like, we're not dealing with any sort of private information. All we're doing is requesting that you log into your account, which is your Ether wallet, and then interacting with the platform through Web3, which is kind of this intermediary between what we're trying to do and what you're allowing us to do. There's no governing body over it. It's just a technology. It's an API, a browser API.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yes,
or
it does.
Did you want me
So the question then becomes, if I'm in VR goggles, because I know that we can like seamlessly publish to Matryx right now in CalcFlow, and we're working on some other ones. But right now, let's use CalcFlow as an example. And I'm publishing to the Matryx platform. Will I be able to sign in via MetaMask inside the VR?
No. So MetaMask is a Chrome extension by nature.
So we can't integrate.
Yeah. So currently there's no like MetaMask for VR yet.
Seems like there should be.
One of the things that we do now is we actually run a private chain get node next to our VR application, and then that essentially you can load in your private keys. It's just normal Ethereum node written in Go, pretty hands down. And then you run that in the background, and it connects to our smart contract platform that way.
Okay, just want to know. Be very interesting if MetaMask decided to try and get into the whole VR interface world and actually incorporate it. But okay, so then my next question would be regarding tournaments. I think a big thing that people are kind of overlooking when it comes to platform economics within the Matryx system is that to view an asset, to publish an asset, to post a tournament, all of these, every step that requires like the either utilization of information, the viewing of information, the posting, all of that, it does require some MTX. It requires utilizing the actual coin itself, which creates a very robust platform economics like background and foundation to the ecosystem. And I want to make sure we get that across to our users, is that it's not like a reward bounty system entirely. It's not like you help fulfill this submission, therefore you receive a bounty. It's the whole system is utilizing MTX.
Yeah, so our goal there is mostly like game theory and utility, right? So how do we incentivize collaboration between different scientific information silos? And one of those things too also comes into like the fact that natively for Ethereum is you want to disincentivize bad actors, and we do the same within our game theory, right? So when you join a tournament, you actually put up a refundable tournament entry fee. Sometimes it's like 2 Matryx. Whoever creates a tournament can set that. So I put up this Matryx saying like I'm joining a tournament. When the tournament ends, I can actually get that back. But basically that disincentivizes people to just join and create a bunch of submissions for no reason.
Yeah.
So, the game theory is embedded everywhere throughout like what we're trying to do in the platform.
Yeah, very brilliant. All right, well, I don't know, is there more? I think we should probably explain a little bit the whole ETH to MTX faucet and us being currently, before we actually have finished or done our security audit, we have to run ourselves on a private chain, which is in our Q2 plans is to start testnet, correct, Sam? I believe that's Q2 plans.
So I'll talk a little bit about that. So basically, the reason we have a private chain is to just give us like free roaming, godlike control of our chain. Like I think I have like $800 million in one of my accounts right now. But essentially, it's a private Ethereum network. We mine it ourselves. We can like initialize a bunch of money. We have our own Matryx token contract. We can like infinitely mint Matryx tokens, etc. But basically, that allows us to really iron out all the bugs in the platform, as well as kind of like have those godlike features that we can control to make sure that everything really operates correctly. As we move over to testnet, however, we kind of have to ask the core Ethereum developers for ETH. We can't be as wild with it. So
Yes.
Definitely look forward to the end of the quarter deploying to testnet, like Rothstein, and until then, our private chain development really it accelerates our course of development really significantly. So
yeah,
which is
the key
setting
here.
up that private chain, and we've learned a lot from it, and really getting into just the tiny operations behind what the Ethereum network actually does. So that's been a really eye-opening experience for us over the last 2 quarters.
Yeah. And for you non-technical minded people that are watching or will be watching, when he says he has 800 million in his wallet, it is on the private chain of MTX, which means it's useless. It's just for running this initial network and getting. When he says the rate of development is quickened, is because we are on a private chain and we aren't having to work with the Ethereum Foundation and to constantly be utilizing real MTX. This is to make sure the system works and works robustly and quickly and well, and that is all. Sam does not have $800 million.
Yeah,
period.
I'd be wearing. Yeah, I'd probably be on an island somewhere by now.
Yeah.
That's true. So, sorry guys.
But yeah, thank you. That was a very good description.
Yeah. Something else I'd like to touch on is the open source Matrix Explorer would be really.
Yeah. So one of there's a couple things that came out with this release. The web UI doesn't really reflect what we did behind the scenes, right? So I would say web UI is probably 1/100th of what actually got deployed. Max spent a ridiculous amount of hours, working with our team on building out the Matryx platform on the Ethereum network for the smart contract sequence. That is truly innovative what we've been doing there. People have made really small smart contracts, whether it's a multi-sig wallet or a token contract. And some people get more and more advanced, looking at CryptoKitties, right? One of the interesting things is that as these platforms get bigger, you have to get really creative in your solutions because you can't write 1,000 lines of code in a smart contract anymore.
Yeah.
I can do that on a Node.js API, but you can't do that in the platform. So it really, it pulls out all these different creative. There you go. It pulls out all these different creative solutions that may not or could have horrible, outcomes when it comes to security. So obviously that's a huge issue for us, and when you deploy to mainnet. So being really conscious of what security happens on the platform as we grow it, and really coming up with these creative solutions with multi-tiered contracts and delegate calls and frameworks and libraries. That has been a big challenge for us. So Max has done a great job building out that platform level, just crushing it. And so then another thing too is when you have this complex platform with these interesting architectures in order to solve these problems, it comes with that's a lot of load on the front end, web UI or Calcflow or any of our third-party interfaces to be able to utilize that data or even just read that data. So one of the things we realized is hey, let's build a Node.js API that essentially maps out that platform and gives it kind of a read-only RESTful API. So we spent a lot of time this quarter building out from scratch an open source API written with Node.js. It's all RESTful endpoint and it's all documented. So basically, you can look at the source code there and see how did we go from the web front end makes a request to me for a tournament details. What does that look like? So I go through a series of requests through kind of our complicated platform that's built in a very distributed way. How do we get that information, aggregate it, put it in a beautiful bow, and send it off to whatever interfaces they want. So it really offloads all the data crunching that we would need to do for any of the front end tools such as the web UI, Calcflow, or soon to be NanoPro.
Yeah, it really opens up the platform to other developers that might be interested in having a relatively user-friendly way of interacting with the smart contracts and being kind of this intermediary between getting data from the smart contracts and presenting it in a universally recognized RESTful API.
Mm-hmm. Industry standard. So, breaking down that layer. No one knows the platform better than we do. We should be the ones that show you how to do it, and even provide a open source API for you to easily get that information.
Yeah. Yeah, I really look forward to seeing how other people will utilize the API. And I think that you really hit the nail on the head with saying, yes, just because we have a web-based platform that looks really pretty, that is actually not where we spent the majority of our work. It's all in the background, which I want everyone in the community and internet talking to you to remember when you decide to go off on long tangents about how blockchain products and this, and I want to see this today, and I want to have a product tomorrow, and all of that stuff. Like, there's so much work that goes into the back of this. So yeah, I think that's just really important to remember, and I'm going to say it until I'm fucking dead.
Yeah, that's really important. Also, like, you can see what we're doing, right? It's all
Yeah.
open source for like the platform and Node.js API level. Like interfaces are proprietary, but like if you want to see like the developments going on the platform, like look at our GitHub, right? Like look at Matryx Platform, look at what we call the API we wrote is called Matryx Explorer. So if you look at those two things, you can see like literally look at the develop branch and see us pushing every day, right? You can see like the literally ridiculous amounts of thousands of code that we've pushed out last quarter. So collectively we've had like way over 100K lines of code last quarter. So you can see that in like the Matryx platform, Matryx Explorer, and other things like that.
Yeah. For the non-technical people out there, go to GitHub, kind of get aware of what's going on, because if you're going to be in the blockchain space, it's going to make your life a lot easier to understand at least what a push is and how often it's happening and what that means for the tenacity of a team to solve a problem or the rate of progression in the actual roadmap, and if they're on track. So we are, and that's why we kind of brought it to you this live stream, so we could kind of discuss all the work that we've done, that they've done, and yeah. But I think you guys have answered pretty much all questions that I have. I'll do a follow up with the community in general. But yeah, I can probably end the stream. So thanks to everyone who's watching. Thanks to everyone who will watch. Sorry for the noises coming from my side. I live in the hood in New York City, and also NYC doesn't know how to be quiet, so that's my bad. Yeah, but thank you guys. You were great, and I can't wait to see what quarter two brings.
Sounds good. See you,